Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here in this fraternity. And I must thank Bhuvnesh and BW for creating this platform for the fraternity to exchange our learnings and also to recognize some top talent in the industry. And I am delighted to be here amongst very distinguished hospitality leaders and friends. And I am looking forward to their insights because between this panel, they represent 247 hotels operating in the country, over 25,000 rooms and 28,000 people. And today, we are at a very interesting inflection point in India's journey. IMF says the world is going to grow at 3% this year and 2.9% next year. India is slated to grow 6.3% this year and next year. And I was reading JP Morgan's annual forecast, which says India will be $7 trillion in 2030. And if you read bookings forecast for India, which came out earlier this week, bookings estimate is that in India FY19 we did $150 billion of tourism earnings. And in 2030, this is going to become $410 billion. And if we see our adjacent space, which is airlines, India is set to absorb 1,400 new aircraft over the next 5 years. And Airbus says that our traffic volume of FY19, which was 165 million passengers, is going to become 685 million passengers in the next 20 years. And I was looking at, how are we comparing with the rest of the world? So Paris, which is considered the bellwether for global tourism, last year had 44 million visitors. And Varanasi had 72 million Indian and domestic visitors. So if we look at the total fulcrum being provided by these economic forces and see what's happening in our country today. We have very big macros of urbanization, digitization and our demographics at play. In 25 years, 1/5 of the world's global workforce is going to be Indians. Within India, 85 million people, which is like the population of Germany, have moved to our cities over the last decade. 34% of India stays in our cities today. And in the next 25 years, 50% of India is going to be all urban. So where is it going to lead us? 30 years ago, India's per capita was $368 and China's was $319. Today, India is $2,600 and China is $13,000. So what explains it? What explains it is actually the big push on infrastructure by those economies and the governments. So if we see the foremost economic power, the United States today, 1968 to 1985, US really plugged in capital and resourcing in its infrastructure, which led to development of hotels, motels, office states and manufacturing. So those 15 years underpinned the United States. Similarly, 30 years starting 1990, China did the same. And what are we seeing in India today is a big positive, which is with the government's push on infrastructure and logistics. So India has last year started, actually the year prior, started a very ambitious program and most of us would know this, it's the Gati Shakti. $1.2 trillion on a rolling basis getting invested in improving our logistics and our infrastructure. So with all these forces at play, and given the massive demand-supply gap in the industry today, it will be good to get a reading from the room and my distinguished colleagues to see how do they see the future of the industry and what are the learnings that we can imbibe. So first, I'm actually going to turn to somebody who's made the entire industry proud. Navjit Ahluwalia at Hilton, for the first time ever, in the Great Places to Work ranking, there is a hotel company which is leading the pack. So, Great Places to Work, #1 employer in India today is Hilton. And I must congratulate you, Navjit. And this augurs very well for the sector, because it's for the first time that the hospitality sector is leading the pack. And while you represent Hilton, I must also say that Hilton US is #2 and India is #1, so which is brilliant. And Navjit has an ambition to get the entire universe of 19 brands of Hilton to India, and by 2030 of hitting a double century, of creating a portfolio of 200 hotels. So I must ask you, Navjit, given this background, how do you see brands evolving in the country going forward? And also your global experience, what do you think should hospitality brands be thinking about and doing for it right now?
Thanks, Rahul. And I think you set the stage correctly. India is poised at such a fantastic moment in its history. A moment that for all of us, I think, comes once in many lifetimes. So I think people in this room, some of us are, have worked much longer, and some of you are just starting out. But I think that this moment will never come again. And the growth that's going to happen in India, to many points you pointed out, for the next 20 years, is going to be extraordinary. It's the growth that we saw in China. It's the growth we saw in the United States in the 1960s when the infrastructure push happened in the United States. But as I flew from Bangalore yesterday and I was at the T2 terminal. And every time I've crossed the T2 terminal, there are new changes. And I was amazed at what that terminal is turning out to be. And it didn't feel like an airport. It actually felt like a mall. And, some of the best restaurant brands, there was a live performance, dance performance going on. It is representative of India. And I think we spoke many years ago when we spoke about the opportunity for hotel rooms in India. We always say the day our truck drivers stop and start staying at a hotel like they do in the United States, we know we have become a mature market. And that day has not come in the last 20 years, but I was very proud to hear Nitin Gadkari ji speaking the other day when he's now making it mandatory for all trucks to have AC cabins, so that the drivers is going to be a manufacturing mandatory requirement. So it is very much in the realms, and in the next 5, 7, 10 years, we will have these truck drivers stop and they will stay at a Hampton or Fairfield or any brand of that nature. And that's the time I think that we will have seen the kind of growth opportunity. And that's happening because of technology, infrastructure, the demographic that's happening in India. So I think we're at the very formative, like we heard Raj speak earlier, the growth market in India represents one of the largest markets for all brands and for all levels of accommodation. And we have to be flexible, not just in hotel accommodation, but also about residences. We're seeing other forms of accommodation like yachts and similar flexible spaces that are coming up. Homes being converted and used as accommodation options. So there's a huge plethora of opportunity available for all of us.
Brilliant, Navjit. to say there is a huge plethora of opportunities, and interestingly, he's nudged us to think of residences and alternate accommodation and underpinning it on not only demographics but also manufacturing. So thank you for that push. And when we think of this, the leader of this is going to be the youth in the country today. And our customers today are increasingly cash rich and time poor. Yet within this dichotomy, they are trying to balance work and family. And I saw a very recent example. So I was speaking to a dear friend, Samir, 2 weeks ago. And this was over a weekend. And I said, Samir, where are you? He said, I am in Bombay. I said, Arey, what are you doing in my city? So Samir was being the Sherpa of a school group, which had him as the representative of parents and one teacher. And both these Sherpas were guiding school students where a band was performing and his daughter was there. So he was being, a very adorable father, I must say. Getting them to Bombay, and he said that, look, my elder daughter is in Pune, I invited her also over here so that I could get to spend some time with them. So to me, this was a very interesting psychographic of the typical new consumer we are dealing with. One who's trying to blend time with family, given the pressures of work. So from the perch you are at, Samir, can you help us read the tea leaves of consumer behavior? How do you think the customer expectations and behavior is going to evolve going ahead? And what should brands be doing today to implement some of those thoughts?
So, good afternoon everybody. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. Of course, Bhuvnesh, thanks for inviting me, and of course my peer panelists. Rahul, thanks for bringing that nice story in. It was a wonderful experience going over that weekend. But yes, in terms of expectations, I think there are some changes which have happened over the last few years, and we've probably spoken about it in various sessions or discussed it in various ways. One of the biggest changes in behavior is about how do you spend time with your loved ones, right? So how do you do that, and how do you mix work and time with your loved ones? So probably that's something which has been a big change. The second one is, of course, the use of technology. So I should be able to work from anywhere, and hence if I go to a hotel, the importance of technology has just magnified a lot more. Basic premise of, say, high-speed internet is definitely a minimum expectation, but it's just not that. It's about how do you bring in technology to enable me to be a lot more comfortable and get things done without having to call people, but yet not forgetting that while tech is important, touch is absolutely indispensable. So there has to be that very nice interplay between tech and touch, and that's something which we can't sort of ignore. The other sort of element which I see is how dining is changing over a period of time, because I guess one of the things which we're all grappling with as we sort of handle life pressures, stress, etc., is the focus on wellness, which of course was a good reminder to us in the pandemic. So that focus on wellness is also sort of trying to get into what we do with our dining options as such, as a consumer, and hence hotels will have to start adapting to that as well. So probably that's just a broad way of looking at that.
Thank you, Samir. So two critical points, what I have gathered. The marriage of high tech and high touch, and consumers experiencing that seamlessly. So how do we deliver that? And the big opportunity for brands to incorporate wellness in their solutions to customers. And as you rightly said in the beginning, that people want to weave in family time with that. Thank you. But when we think of this paradigm of evolving brands serving consumers, it can only get delivered by the most important constituent in our business, which is our people, our employees. So when I see on my right, I have somebody sitting whom Virat Kohli would be very happy to get into his team, because he's just scored a century and he's still continuing. So Radisson hotels, 115 hotels operating, another 65 in play right now, 14,000 people, 4,000 crores and ticking. So at this pace, I think Radisson will be a double century very fast, and I can confidently say in the next couple of years is going to be 300 very soon. So when you see this huge 360 canvas of brands, Zubin, and expectations of asset owners, evolution of brands, but customers will get served only by employees. But having said that, what Samir alluded to prior, that actually the labor arbitrage that we have enjoyed in India actually there has been effectively no labor arbitrage because our labor costs have been so low. While as if we look at more mature economies, labor costs today are 50, 54, 55% of the top line. So, Zubin, how do you see this paradigm change for our sector? And what are the learnings that you think we should be mindful of today? And how do we play this man-machine story now?
Thank you, Mr. Pandit. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to take a contrarian view. I think as managers, we are all paid to look at it bottom up. So I think I'd like to dissect a very important problem. Of course, the India growth story, the India infrastructure story, India shining, Amrit Kal, is all very real. I mean, I think most of us here on this panel, many of us are leading high growth organizations, and which forces us to travel across the length and the breadth of the country. And I think many of us would agree in the room that India today is one big construction site, be it in terms of real estate construction, be it roadways. And I think the economy clearly is poised for huge upside, I think, and that's going to be, that's quite obvious to all of us for the next, I think it'll be, this is the next 20 years of India. And I think we are all in the right place at the right time. So I'll not go about repeating what has been stated already. I think I just want to offer my affirmation that I think, yes, we are poised for huge growth, and I'll leave it at that. And not only sectoral growth in hospitality, I think this is going to be across all industries, because with growth will come increased consumption. With that will come, increase the spending propensity, and that will naturally lead into a higher consumption for service products, i.e. hospitality for us. I would like to highlight a very important issue that I see coming up. And I hope, this is raised and we do something about it. Now, we have been opening now for the last 5 years, maybe more, anywhere between 10 and 12 hotels a year. 50% of that pipe is in tier 2 and tier 3 markets. Every time we open a hotel, there is just a huge talent crunch that somehow just grows and grows and grows. At some point, of course, all of us are reaching into each other's, companies, maybe, I don't like using the word, but poaching talent from each other. It's not a very elegant word to be used. But, to what end are you going to be able to do that? Our industry is poised to grow double, triple in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think we are producing enough general managers. Forget general managers, every hotel room has an impact. One hotel room has an impact of 16 employments, direct or indirect, be it the housekeepers, be it the suppliers, the vendors. So, that's the economic impact of a hotel. What that means to us is that we are not, for 50,000 hotel rooms, you will need 16 times, right? So that's about 800,000 people. Do we have that employee strength emerging in the hospitality industry? I don't think so. So my point here is that I think we are, and we better do something about it, because it's a serious problem. I think all of us know about it, talk about it. But I think we are not moving fast enough, and I'll be honest, I don't think we have the ability to move fast enough on this particular subject, right? Where are we going to get the people who are going to run our hotels? So what that means is, and now the answer to your question, I think we are, whether we like it or not, are most definitely going to have to adopt technology as a second option. You know, and how we do it is going to be the big question. You know, and I'll tell you, this is going to impact sectoral ROIs, right? I think we all agree that we will not have robots serving guests. You know, that's not the expectation. When you move into a hotel or go into a hotel to dine or to stay, you wouldn't want, you're not seeking automation, you're seeking warmth and love, right? And that's what we as Indian hoteliers, more so than anywhere else in the world, pride ourselves upon, right? How are we going to be able to deliver that? Now, we all know that luxury is perhaps a product, perhaps an experience, perhaps an emotion, right? We will not be able to drive our average rates up the way we have. And I'm glad that the sector has moved up 50% in the last 3 years or so in terms of ADR pricing. You know, that's not going to be sustainable if you lower your levels of customer service, right? So I think automation is going to come into play. That to me is the given, you know, in a big way, right? And we're already talking predictive softwares, talking revenue forecasting models, things like that. That's one side of the business, which is great, right? I think from a customer experience point of view, if you're not able to deliver the service, two things will happen. One, I think we are all bound to be moving into a westernized model. You know, we have a 500-room hotel in Frankfurt, and there are all companies in the West are like that, you know, being run by 50 people, right? The level of customer service, you know, and India being an 85% domestically driven market, right? So our customer by default is used to a very high level of customer service. I mean, the same guest who's going to pay 5,000 rupees and walk into one of our hotels demand somebody to pick his bags and a chai pakora coming to his room, and he's going to pay 300 euros and go to a Paris or a London or wherever else, and he's going to pick his own bags up. So I think that tendency is not changing. So I think this is a big question for all of us. I think the senior leaders in the room, you know, we all need to do something about it. And I think either of the realities is not changing. Our industry is poised for growth, whether we like it or not. We have an increasingly bigger gap emerging in terms of manpower. And by the way, when I talk manpower, it's about also skilling of that manpower. It's about how, you know, what the quality is of that. And, you know, you invest so much in training and development, and then there's a high degree of movement across the brands, because people obviously, and it's naturally right for them to be able to pursue career opportunities. So this is a dilemma. I think it requires a much larger discussion. I've eaten up a lot of time. I would love to talk about it even more. But I think that's where I leave it. Yeah, thank you.
So Zubin, thank you for having us pause our thoughts and say, while the macros are good, we actually have a very big challenge around talent and employability in the sector. So the nudge I got from Zubin was, how are we actually going to start considering CapEx as an arbitrage to OpEx? Because for very long, we've enjoyed the very low labor arbitrage of the sector, but that's going to go away. And if you are not wise to it today, then tomorrow the rug may be pulled under our feet. Because as he also rightly said, that while we may expect lots of talent, but the talent is not getting churned out at the same rate. And while we do it, another important reality, Zubin, thank you for highlighting that even though 85% of our top line is domestic, this same consumer who for $60 in India expects the bags to be delivered to the room, for $300 in another geography is going to carry his or her bags up herself. So how do you satisfy that? So that's something very rightly, Zubin, that you pointed out for the industry to say, hey, that's something I think that the leaders will have to start working on today. And those who invest in the requisite technology and the solutions today to start to defray their labor OPEX are going to enjoy the advantages in times to come. Now shifting gears, I want to move to another friend who represents the world's largest hotel franchising platform. Wyndham Hotels, with close to 1 million rooms globally. And I must say that, I've seen Wyndham accelerate its pace. 60 hotels operating today, another 3 dozen in the pipeline. So with this and your global network and your intellect, and the reason I say intellect, some of you would know, Nikhil used good use of the pandemic times to actually pen an Amazon bestseller. It was imagining the journey of Kabir and Rumi, that if they come to contemporary times, how would they share their learnings? So, given the internal churn that you do, and the fact that you are plugged in to the world's largest franchising platform, Nikhil, how do you see brands evolve today, especially different models, whether it be Airbnb or homestays? And along with that, my question is, what other models do you see come up? And the third, related to this, that when you see all these brands evolve, what's critical for India is food. Indians think of food actually like entertainment. It's not only nutrific value. So, across all these brands that you think will evolve, will get impacted, where would F&B fit into all of this?
Thank you, Mr. Pandit. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start with the F&B piece first, because I think Bhuvnesh has and the Pullman Hotel have taken extra care in the last 2 days to make sure that the F&B experience here is fantastic. I truly believe that in the mid-market, upscale, and of course the luxury segment, food continues to be a major component because of the socials, of the MICE, and like you said, food is entertainment for Indians, and it's a huge part when it comes to socials and deciding a location. So food is going to continue to play a role. We're actually seeing a lot of customers, ordering online, and a lot of hotel companies actually don't allow the Swiggies and the Zomatos to deliver, which I think is only a matter of time, and customers, it's a customer requirement today. So customers are going to order from Swiggy and Zomato if they don't like what you have on the menu, and it's fine. You have to give them the choice. On your question on how do we see brands moving, and something that actually Dimitris wrote about last week was, and we're not using lifestyle as a name, but we're saying stylish hotels, because you could be in any segment, right? Everyone wants to feel nice when they go into a hotel, and it could be stylish. An example is you could be wearing a Zara and feel stylish, or you could be wearing a Gucci and still feel stylish. So stylish hotels, and I think a lot of us are making that effort to make our hotels look stylish and more relevant. So I think you will see a new age of hotels across, and I can speak for our brands that we are infusing a lot of, for lack of a better word, stylish and youthfulness in our brands, and that's something that you will see across as brands grow. On your first question on Airbnb, homestays, and hotels, I think there is space for all of them. You will see growth of homestays. You are going to see growth of aggregators and so on and so forth. But I also see hotels getting into the business. Most hotel companies are already doing this across the world. A major hotel company in India announced homes and villas and so on and so forth. So you're going to see hotels companies across the spectrum from luxury to homestays. And I believe that's the future for this country.
Thank you. So your nudge is to say, hey, get ready for lifestyle brands, because that's what will appeal to customers. And horizontally, different hotel brands across price points will have to start catering to the massive demand for homestays in the alternate accommodation. An interesting food for thought that F&B has to be open architecture. If customers want choice, then sooner or later, hotels will have to open gates. Now, I know we don't have too much time, but probably 2 minutes, quick, I'm going to ask everybody. So first, Navjit, to you. Hilton's also been on the forefront of many interesting tech initiatives, but typically our industry has, in a very orthodox fashion, been laggards. How do you see tech evolving right now, and is there anything that we should be doing today?
So I think, as you rightly said, Hilton has been at the forefront of technology, and technology is on both sides, at the enterprise level and at the customer level. So obviously at the enterprise level, we have upgraded our technology platforms from our reservation. We have our own unique reservation system on queue, which we have just upgraded to PEP. We have our app, which is, everybody is proud of their own app, but I think if you view the Hilton app, it is capable of a lot of things that many other apps don't allow consumers to do. So all the technology platforms, that's on the enterprise level. And on the consumer side, obviously, we are leading on digital, which is all contactless services. So you're able to enter your room digitally with a digital key. And a vast majority of our hotels around the world have this capability as well. And also the connected room, so that when you enter your room digitally, it automatically understands your preferences on your TV and connects your TV to your personalized accounts on Netflix and Spotify and so on and so forth. So I think on both counts, we are kind of industry leading.
So giving consumers a digital experience, which is actually a carry away of what they are used to in their lives. Not having consumers relearn technology when they are in a hotel. So if they could have a seamless experience of tech in a hotel room, then hey, the hotel becomes, the preferred choice. So Samir, similarly here, if you look at the hotel product, what do you think is going to be evolving in the product? And what should we be doing about it today?
I think one of the biggest changes we are seeing as we sort of get into more hotel investments is the cost of real estate, right? So clearly what used to be a standard many years back of saying I want a 350, 450 square feet room in a mid-scale is definitely going to change. I think investors and hotel operators both will have to be more conscious of how investments go into every square meter utilized in the room. So I think that's probably the biggest change, the willingness to sort of make the room more efficient with better usage of space. The second is, of course, looking at opportunities to bring in more hybrid spaces. Is there an opportunity to bring in co-working? Is there an opportunity to bring in creative dining options? Is definitely something which we as hoteliers will have to look at. And probably the third one is moving away from the traditional approach of how we operate hotels or how we plan hotels. So for a long time, hoteliers have said, I want 2 restaurants, I want a bar, I want X amount of meeting rooms and a large business center, probably not even requiring it in that particular market or micro location. So the willingness for a hotel company to say that, look, I'm willing to be flexible on how the layouts work. Do I need to be insistent on X number of F&B outlets versus can I bring in some flexibility to it, because eventually it's about delivering returns on every square meter we build. So probably those are the big changes I see.
Great mantras for maximizing returns on real estate. So first, what Samir is saying, that the most expensive item in our hotels, that will have to get reduced. So the most expensive is actually the cost of our embedded real estate. So how do rooms become more efficient And you can't have one standard template fit all, whether it be outlets or dining options. They'll have to be curated by geography. And third, you said if you are planning massing of development, what other hybrid options do we look at? Whether it is co-working, as you said, or F&B or even offices, so that we actually create the right social cohort for that place. Quickly, Zubin, you personally been like the general, leading Radisson's charge for development and growth. So when you see the market today, what do you think is going to change in the hotel development formats? And what should hotel leadership be doing about it today?
Mr. Pandit. What will change in hotel development formats? I think we'll become a lot more practical about how we are building. Can you? Okay. I think we'll become a lot more practical. I think return per square foot will be very important. What that means is that mixed-use development formats will become more popular. What that means is hotels on top of malls is the way to go. Branded residences, service apartments, outsourcing F&B, and keeping in-house rooms and rooms related, because I've been tying into my earlier point, we'll not have enough people to serve F&B. I think homestays is going to grow. We don't have enough capacity that will grow in line with market consumption. I think predictive softwares around business forecasting, as we get more and more data is bound to happen. So I think those are some of the things which I see changing. I think the market has matured. We do get into a lot of development conversations now where, so there is, earlier in the year, I said something on one of the panels. I said it's ROI versus ROI. The first ROI meaning return on imagination, and the second one being return on investment. So I think the first is becoming the second now. Investors are becoming more cautious and mature about, ROI, which one I'm talking about. So that's how I see it changing a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, brilliant. So as a development professional, Zubin is saying that hoteliers have to take the lead in actually looking at returns per square foot. So it doesn't mean independent development of a hotel. It means what's the best use case for that development. If that be hybrid, for example, and as he rightly alluded to, if you're going to be doing hotels on top of a mall where rentals decrease when you go up, maybe that's a good place to put up a hotel. And how do you arbitrage other services? So this means successful development professionals will actually start becoming consultants, even in doing layout planning, saying the secret of my hotel is not just the success of the facility, it's the success of the entire development which is getting planned. Nikhil, last on to you. We looked at the big gap and challenges in attracting and retaining talent for the industry and skilling for the sector. What are your views? What should we be doing to surmount this huge skilling challenge?
Mr. Pandit, just one more addition. You will see rise of branded residences in this country as we move along in the next 5 years. You're going to see a lot of brands on branded residences. So that's the next big piece other than homestays that Zubin was speaking of. And I think he mentioned branded residences as well. Well, very quickly on skilling, all of us are adding hotels. I believe organizations, and I don't know if networks in the room, but organizations like Job Plus that are actually skilling students in the Northeast. And the onus is really on brands like us to try and partner with them. We at Wyndham Hotels have partnered with them, and we're trying to get these students in cities like Bareilly and Indore and tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities with good jobs and good paying salaries. And I think we need many more skilling centers. THSC and Job Plus are doing a great job, but the answer today is in the skilling centers and not in the hotel management schools. My request would be to partner with these skilling centers so that we move forward. And of course, Mr. Kachru is on the skilling center board nationally, but yeah, we need someone like him to steer that forward.
Thank you. So last words we got from Nikhil was that if we have to look at talent, the industry has to become more involved in skilling. Whether it be looking at geographies hitherto ignored, whether it be Northeast or Kashmir, what could we do in those geographies? Or horizontally, what can we do at talent pools that we didn't focus on? Because Nikhil rightly said, talent is not just going to be hotel schools. Talent is going to be, for example, what can we do with war widows? What can we do with people with disabilities? And what can we do with people who are not regular hotel school grads? So lots for a panel that's been generated for the room to munch on. And I am so delighted. I was sitting with these four stalwarts, and it was better to have spent these 45 minutes than read a tome on what's going to happen in the industry. So thank you, Navjit. Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you, Zubin. Thank you, Samir. It's been wonderful. And thank you for being very patient